All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about one of the biggest hacks in all of human history. And no, I don't mean a computer hack. I'm talking about a societal hack, an invention that completely rewrote the operating system of the entire world.
Hey there, Class 10 students. Welcome to your A1 Institute guide on a topic that is absolutely crucial, the print revolution. Get ready, because what we have here is the ultimate exam-ready explainer, built to give you everything you need to know.
So let's kick things off with the big question, the one that drives this whole story. How on earth did one machine, just a press with some movable type, manage to completely change how people lived, challenge the most powerful institutions on the planet, and open up totally new ways of seeing the world? Well, let's find out. Okay, our story starts with the very first, most immediate impact. I want you to picture the printing press hitting the world like a stone dropped into a perfectly still lake. This was that first big splash, the creation of a brand new reading public.
Now, this is a really fascinating shift to wrap your head around. Before print, the world was all about oral culture. Knowledge was something you heard, not something you read. Priests would read text out loud, storytellers would pass on tales, and information was basically controlled by the small elite who could actually read. But then, after print, bam, books started flooding the market. That hearing public slowly transformed into a reading public. Knowledge wasn't just for the chosen few anymore, it was on its way to being for everyone.
But you might be thinking, what about all the people who still couldn't read? Well, printers were pretty clever about this. They started printing popular ballads and folktales, a lot of them with pictures. And these could be sung and recited in taverns and town squares, so even if you were illiterate, the printed word could still reach you. It was this amazing blend of the old oral world and the new print culture.
So, let's see where this goes next. That first splash created a ripple, right? And the very first major institution it hit, and I mean it hit hard, was the Roman Catholic Church, which was pretty much the most powerful force in Europe at the time.
And this brings us straight to the Protestant Reformation. Back in 1517, a religious reformer you've probably heard of, Martin Luther, wrote his 95 Theses, basically calling out the practices of the church. Now, in the old days, an idea like that might have spread super slowly or just died out. But Luther had the printing press on his side. And this is where you can see the sheer power of this new technology. When Luther translated the New Testament into the language of the common people, 5,000 copies sold in just a few weeks. A second edition was out within 3 months. I mean, that kind of speed and scale was completely unheard of. Ideas could literally go viral for the first time in history.
Luther himself knew exactly how big a deal this was. He called printing the ultimate gift of God. He saw it as this divine tool that let his message of reform spread to places and people he could never have reached otherwise. And it was key to splitting the church in two.
Of course, not everyone was thrilled about this explosion of new books and new ideas. The people in charge, kings and church leaders, they were terrified. If anyone could just pick up a book and interpret it for themselves, what would happen to the old power structures? And that fear, it led directly to a crackdown.
So the reaction is a really important point to get. The church used its power through things like the Inquisition to stomp out what it called heretical ideas. Just look at the case of Monarchical, a miller in Italy. He got his hands on some books, read them, and came up with his own interpretation of the Bible. For that, the church branded him a heretic and, well, they executed him. The message was crystal clear. Think differently, and you'll pay the price. And get this, it wasn't just the church that was getting nervous. Even famous scholars like Erasmus started to worry about the glut of books. He was afraid that the sheer volume of new stuff being printed, a lot of which he saw as seditious or just plain trashy, would actually devalue real knowledge. The age of information overload had officially begun. But here's the thing. Despite all the fear and the attempts at control, that ripple was growing into a wave. People got a taste for reading and they wanted more. The market just exploded with new material, feeding what some historians call a full-blown reading mania. I mean, just look at these numbers. By the end of the 18th century, literacy rates in some parts of Europe had shot up to as high as 60 to 80%. As more and more people learned to read, the demand for books just went through the roof.
So, what was everyone reading? All kinds of cool, new stuff. There were chapbooks, these cheap little pocket-sized books sold by traveling peddlers. There were almanacs, which became huge bestsellers. And most importantly, the ideas of Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire and Rousseau, which used to be stuck in academic circles, were now getting printed and sold everywhere, bringing these radical ideas about reason and liberty to the masses. Okay,
So let's move on to the massive political consequences. If the Reformation was that first big ripple, this was the second, and it was about to shake the very foundations of government. We're talking about the age of political revolution, and especially the French Revolution.
This quote is just incredible. It's from a novelist named Louis Sébastien Mercier, and it totally captures the feeling of the time. People genuinely believed that books could change the world, that the power of the written word could free society from tyranny and start a whole new age of reason.
And what was the main target for these writers? It was despotism, the absolute total power of kings in the church. They were arguing for a world that was ruled by logic and public debate, not by some king who said God put him there.
Okay, students, this one is huge for your exams, so listen up. You need to know these 3 key arguments. Number 1, Corinth spread the ideas of Enlightenment thinkers who were attacking the government's absolute power. Number 2, it created this whole new culture of public debate, where ordinary people started to question everything. And number 3, a ton of literature started to make fun of the royals and criticize how they lived, which wore away the respect people used to have for them.
So here it is, the big takeaway, the idea that's going to make your exam answers really stand out. Print didn't directly cause the revolution. It's not like people read a book and then immediately stormed the castle. Instead, it armed people with new ways of seeing the world. It encouraged them to question authority and gave them the mental tools to think differently.
And so, what started as that little splash in the lake became a ripple, then a wave, and finally it became a full-on tidal wave. The world was changed forever, completely remade by the power of print.
When you boil it all down, the print revolution took information, which had always been this carefully controlled little stream guarded by the powerful, and turned it into a vast, deep, and totally uncontrollable ocean. It gave a voice to people who never had one, it fueled revolutions, and it truly laid the groundwork for the modern world we live in today.
And that wraps up our deep dive into the print revolution. Now, let's chat about how you can keep this learning journey going with A1 Institute, so you can walk into your exams feeling totally confident.
Hey, if this explainer helped you out, do us a favor and hit that like button. It really helps other students find it. Share it with your classmates too. Got any questions? Drop them in the comments below. And definitely subscribe to the A1 Institute channel for more explainers just like this one. For admissions, notes, or any guidance, our phone number is right there in the description. And hey, don't forget to check out the other parts of this chapter. They're all right here on our channel. Thanks for watching.